Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. We have three items this afternoon, and the first is a Bellingham Public Library operations update. Our library director, Pam Kiesner, will present a brief operations update, including the 2013 annual report and summer reading program. And Pam, I think I got two versions of, are they the same?
Yep. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, use whichever one you'd
Cool.
like.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine.
So I'm Pam Kiesner, Library Director at the Bellingham Public Library. Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to share an operations update with you. We talked extensively with you just a few weeks ago about facilities planning at our joint Library Board City Council meeting. And on behalf of the Library Board, I really want to thank you for allowing us that opportunity. We look forward to talking with you more and working together on that. But today I'm here to update you on other library activities, including our 2013 annual report and our wonderful summer reading programs. Oops, there we go. How did the Bellingham Public Library serve you in 2013? We publish an annual report every year to help answer this question. It includes statistics like those that you see here, as well as other highlights of our work to meet our mission of connecting our community with each other and the world. We hope you'll review it and let us know if you have any questions. Copies are in your packet, several copies apparently, and also available on the library's website at www.bellinghampubliclibrary.org. I want to highlight some numbers from 2013 that are included in our annual report. We've been looking at our statistics as we implement our strategic plan and as we think about the future of Bellingham Public Library facilities and services. I'll be sharing a few charts today, and we'll be back with more in the future. For example, when we look way back at 1951, which is when the Central Library was built, we see that since then Bellingham's population has more than doubled, while the library's circulation has increased by more than 6 times. That's what this chart shows. Our community continues to be made up of strong library users and voracious learners. Here you can see our circulation numbers continue to tick upward with more than 1.6 million items checked out last year. This is a fascinating chart. I want to talk with you about this for a few moments. Our circulation per capita continues to be among the highest in the nation and in the state. Circulation per capita relates to the number of library materials checked out to the number of people that the library serves, so that's our population. This chart shows, using 2012 data, the average circulation per capita for Bellingham, which is over 20 items per cap, average circulation per capita for several individual libraries in Washington, which serve communities in our population range, the average circulation per capita for all Washington communities in Bellingham's population range, and that is at 12.56. Just a reminder, Bellingham is at 20.14. And then the average circulation per capita across the United States for communities our size, which is 7.48. Bellingham is 20.14. Today, unlike in 1951 or even in 2006, our circulation numbers include our electronic resources as well, e-books, e-magazines, and more. E-resources made up just 1% of our circulation in 2008. They were almost 10% of last year's circulation. Our collection of digital materials continues to grow. A year ago, we had just over 21,000 digital or electronic items in the collection. Today we have nearly 30,000 of this type of digital resources available to our patrons. We belong to a purchasing consortium in the state which maximizes our purchasing power and availability of materials. Other highlights from 2013 that we've noted in our annual report are Sunday hours, and even though we didn't start those till 2014, in 2013 you approved the additional funding and we began working on actually implementing those Sunday hours. Being open on Sunday is one of our most requested services, and we're grateful to the City Council and City Administration for supporting it. The Friends of the Bellingham Public Library, well, their hard work pays off many times over. In 2013, the Friends pledged more than $100,000 worth of support for important purposes like picture books for story times and other materials for our collection, our subscription to language learning software, funding for the summer reading program, chairs for the Fairhaven Branch Library community room users, and much more. Also in 2013, we developed more in our Early Learning Center. We continued our focus on early learning and childhood development, such as by adding baby time to our other very popular Early Learning Center offerings. We now have 12 story times a week, each filled to capacity. And we opened an Early Learning Center at the Fairhaven branch as well. The Builders Club, we started Builders Club to promote open, creative play. Legos, wooden blocks, and other building materials are available to inspire young builders. Our mobile app was introduced last year. With it, you can search, place holds, download ebooks, and more, all on the go. Our mobile app is one of those services that when people hear that we have it, say, I didn't know that the library had that. We have so many things to offer that people might not know about. We've centered our upcoming fall library card campaign around letting people know that they might be missing out. Are you missing out? We have e-books, e-magazines, graphic novels, audiobooks, movies, story times, book clubs, music, and much more, all free with a library card. The campaign is in collaboration with our partners at Whatcom County Library System. So if you live in Bellingham or in Whatcom County, you can visit www.yourlibraries.org to sign up for your free library card. Moving on to 2014, a change we made at the Central Library this spring is our Skillshare, a place to learn and share skills. We created flexible, interactive, community-centered space in the middle of the Central Library. We designed it to be visible and inclusive so you can walk by, see or hear an activity, and easily join in. This was funded by the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation, and they asked us if we would like money to do this. They approached us, and we were very pleased to say yes. We also had local support from the Zervis Group and the Friends of the Bellingham Public Library. We're receiving national attention for this project and expect even more. We're piloting a few ideas this summer, such as ukulele lessons, technology coaching, baby sign language, creative crafting, and Qigong lessons to learn what works best. With these experiences under our belts, we'll build a more complete calendar of learning opportunities this fall. Over time, we hope to see community members take the lead in presenting creative, interesting programs that bring people of all ages together to share and learn. It's a very cool space if you haven't seen it yet. We're offering several summer reading programs for all ages, from children to teens to adults. Our children's summer reading program is called Fizz Boom Read and Little Sparks. It's a science theme. More than 6,000 elementary age readers were invited to participate in the program. It challenges kids to read 15 hours this summer and includes reading, themed activities, prizes, and much more. Children who reach their goal receive a yard sign to post in their front yard. You may see these signs popping up around the community. They're provided by the Friends of the Library as a visible reinforcement of good reading habits. The teen summer reading theme is Spark a Reaction, and the adult theme is Literary Elements. We didn't used to have an adult summer reading program, so it's very fun. The goals of summer reading are to maintain reading fluency. Many studies show that children who read during the summer do not lose fluency and have a running start when school starts up again in the fall. The adult program also models good reading behavior for children. All summer reading programs promote reading in fun, creative ways and include winning prizes. Visit our website for details. The Children's Summer Reading Recognition Ceremony is Thursday, August 21st, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock on the Central Library lawn. Special thanks to the Friends of the Bellingham Public Library, as summer reading is almost entirely supported by our friends. We hope you'll join us and the mayor and celebrate this year's summer reading accomplishments.
Future mayor right there.
Yeah. We also recently held our annual Children's Craft Fair. July 25th was our 46th annual Children's Craft Fair, popular among young entrepreneurs and enthusiastic supporters of all ages. Jewelry, snacks, artwork, soap, lotion, magnets, and more, all for $4 or less. This popular event, you might wonder, why do we put this on? It's a great opportunity for these young people to learn all kinds of life skills, handling money, interacting with people, organizing and meeting deadlines, marketing, and more. We have many different kinds of creative learning activities for all ages this summer. Another example is BayCon. More than 250, mostly young people, celebrated their love of anime and manga at the 5th annual Bellingham Anime Mini Convention in June. Anime and manga, in case you didn't know, are forms of entertainment that originate in Japan. Anime are animated movies or TV shows, while manga are print comics. Both come in hundreds of different genres, and both are produced for fans of all ages. While BayCon is for all ages, the focus is on youth ages 12 to 18. Activities included art, dressing up in costumes, a reading room, and other opportunities for local youth to connect with each other, celebrate their love of anime and manga, practice social and theatrical skills, and more. It's so popular, we've outgrown our space, and we're considering a bigger location for next year. 250 teens in the lecture room is a lot. These are just a few of the many learning activities we're hosting this summer for all ages. We're all about lifelong education, spending time with family, friends, and neighbors, reading and learning in fun, interactive, and creative ways, and enjoying the resources our community has to offer. Bellingham Public Library, connecting our community with each other and the world. Read, learn, meet, discover. Thank you for your support. Do you have any questions?
Roxanne and then Michael.
As the liaison to Bellingham Public Schools, I learned about a really revolutionary thing that the school district took on in addition to their regular duties. And just let me indulge for a second that we recognize that there are children that fall through the cracks and they can't afford Head Start, ECAP, Montessori, things of that nature. So the school district then took a bunch of kids that were financially based and got them into school as school was letting out. So they're preparing these kids so that they will not fall through the cracks and they will get better educational support and knowledge. So now that we have early learning sorts of things going on, I wonder if we can tie that in with those initiatives.
You bet. And in fact, if Bethany Hoagland were here, she's the head of our youth services. She and her staff are working very hard in connecting with the schools, and we bring in ELL classes, the parents and the children into the library for tours, and we do a thing with the parents while the kids are having a story time, and we go into the schools as well. In fact, that's one of our big pushes in the next year is our outreach into the schools, because that's, you know, the best thing we can do is to go meet the kids where they are. So it's a big part of what we're doing, and we're connected with the schools.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yes, Pam, I remember several years ago when the Fairhaven hours were cut back at that library. It took a while for attendance and use to recover when hours were restored. Has it looked similar with regard to Sunday hours? And there was, people no longer had Sunday hours. Have we recovered to previous levels of use of the Sunday hours now? Because now it's, been not quite, 9 months, I guess?
We haven't specifically yet looked at Sunday. Overall, you can see that we're trending upwards in our circulation over what we were even before we closed. So we think it's going to look good, but we haven't examined Sundays yet. We were waiting to get some more data. We're still only open 20 hours at Fairhaven. We're only open 20 hours at Barkley, and we'll be making a request for restoring those hours for next year's budget. Because while our circulation is continuing to go up, our people count is not going up as much. So we think that people are not finding it convenient to come to the library 20 hours a week. It's just not enough. So.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much, Pam.
Thank you.
Come back anytime.
Come and see us at the library this
We sure
summer.
will.
Okay.
Okay, next up, discussion on personnel costs. Staff will present an overview of citywide personnel costs, including salaries, healthcare costs, and other benefit-related matters. And this is from Brian Henshaw, our City Finance Director. Also information only.
President Lehman, I just want to
Yes.
make a couple comments to begin. First of all, we're going to focus today just on the general fund, because the general fund is the fund that we have that is the most stressed. So we wanted just to focus on that. Secondly, I noticed that we've been presenting the different decisions that have increased the cost for personnel. And I guess I want to make sure that nobody thinks that that is a bad thing, that the personnel that we have, the job that they do, the level of services that we're able to provide are a good thing. And so as we talked about this or this or this went higher, I just want to make sure it was in the context of this is just the way it is. And our healthcare costs, our settling our contracts, all of those things, which make it more expensive to hire people or to keep people hired, because the goal is not to decrease our level of service, even though the general fund isn't as stable as we'd like it to be yet, or as robust. It's a good thing. We have good employees, and I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Brian Henshaw, City of Bellingham Finance Department. Thank you very much. Again, it'll be a brief presentation. As the mayor described, it's more of a discussion. It's a context for upcoming budget conversations, and it's just the way the funding mechanisms work, where we are, and then as part of the discussions coming up for next year. The budgeted general fund revenues for this year are $69.5 million. That's $1.5 million higher than the 2013 actuals. And our four main revenue sources are property tax, sales tax, B&O tax, and utility tax, which account for 76% of all of the general fund revenue. I mentioned, I think at the last meeting, unfortunately, the year-to-date trend for sales tax and B&O tax, sales tax is flat after 7 months, and B&O tax is actually down slightly from last year, year over year. And so that's just important to keep in mind as we look towards the end of the year. The revenue shortfall could be around $500,000 in the general fund, depending on how that trend continues between now and the end of the year. On the expense side, this year's revised general fund budget is $72.3 million. This is $5.3 million higher than last year. $2 million of that is for the capital remodel of the federal building. So we're about $3.3 million higher on the expense side than we were just a year ago. The largest portion of that is salaries and benefits, as the mayor mentioned. About $50 million of the $72 million is salaries and benefit for the general fund personnel costs that are in this year's budget. I just want to point out that this is a planned budget deficit of $2.8 million where we stand right now. So that's increased from the beginning of the year. The adopted budget was $2 million. We are now up to $2.8 million in the revised budget through ordinances that we've approved this year. This next chart is just to show you the two largest departments account for 53% of those costs. Fire and police, $37.8 million is being spent on fire and police in 2014. That's the general fund portion of their budgets. All of the other departments make up the other 47% of the general fund. And I'll just add here, non-departmental is to pay for contributions to the cemetery from the general fund, pay for contributions to Medic One, pay for contributions to pay for the federal building. That's all budgeted here in non-departmental costs. So, okay. I showed you this slide before. It has to do with the average employee cost. This is citywide, and just in the last 6 years, it's gone up $20,000 from $75,000 to $95,000. So you'll see what's happening is we had more employees at a lower cost, and as this goes down, the average cost has gone up. Just to compare that, this is an average increase of 4.7% each year. CPI during this time has been 1.6. This is very low for CPI. It's the long-term average is much closer to about 3%, so we've had favorable cost of living or consumer price increases. It's 1.6. This is now trending up a little bit higher. And then average health care insurance costs during this time period were 8.7%. So that's both policies that the city has offered during this time period, Regents and Group Health, combined 8.7%. Obviously, this is the larger contributor up here in the employee costs. So what's that mean? In 2007, this is on revenues. The general fund revenues were approximately $70 million. So the good news is that after the recession, we're back up to $70 million in revenue. But offsetting that is that salary and benefit costs used to be 58% of that. This year, they're budgeted to be 71%. So the difference between the $70 million and the $50 million leaves about $20 million for everything else that the city needs to pay for besides our own staff out of the general fund. So that's parks and libraries, all of the programs that we would like. You've seen this slide before too, but I wanted to show, this is the general fund reserves, and it goes back again to 2009. We've treaded water, moved sideways. That $2.8 million deficit that is budgeted this year is coming out right here. And in 2010, Council adopted the financial guidelines that established the general fund target as 5% or 12% of the operating fund. So this number will go up as the operations go up in the general fund. This year it's $8.4 million, and that sounds like a lot of money. However, for the general fund, it's about 6 weeks of operations. So when we're talking about the general fund reserve, we're really just talking between that targeted amount, 12%, and what is balanced here. I'm forecasting right now, depending on the trends, about $3 to $4 million of unrestricted general fund that is available for emergencies, but also for programs, one-time expenses. But as we get closer and closer to the trend line here, at 12%, there's things that are required in the guideline for staff and the mayor to come back with a plan to get us above that number again if we ever fall below the 12% target. So this is a target. There's also a minimum, which is $5 million or 6%, whichever is greater. So we still have some time here, but it is a trending down, and at some point we're going to have some either new revenues or prioritize the decisions that we have. All right, that's all I was going to show you today, unless the mayor had some more comments or you have questions.
Any questions or comments from Council Pinky?
Not really a question, just a comment. Just watching the reserve funds go lower and lower makes me a little nervous. It's like your savings account disappearing, and at home that makes me really nervous.
Anyone want to follow up that comment?
Maybe I could just to put it in perspective. I've said this before, but if I remember right, back in 1995, the first budget we did in 94, we had an operating
Sophomore in high school that year.
general fund reserve was about $200-some thousand, but times are different now. I mean, we set the target. Terry was on the council when we did the target, and it is alarming to see that, and hopefully there's ways to get it back up. But there was no target years ago at all, so we've slid around on the seat of our pants a few times, but it's great to have a target, and hopefully we can build it back up again.
Well, I think the council was forward-thinking when they set the target. At the state level, there wasn't a target. And by the time a target was set, we were cutting billions of dollars out of the budget. So I think it's really good to have planned ahead. It's good to have a ceiling and a floor, understanding that all that over the 12% that we had before, because we didn't want to cut staff and that type of thing, that, you know, that's what's making it go down. And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have raised taxes. Some of them could have been general fund taxes that could have been spent, but we've dedicated that money to specific things. So it isn't that we haven't raised more money. We have raised more money. It's just that a lot of our budget comes out of just general fund, and there's no dedicated taxes for some of those type things. So it isn't, you know, we've been paying as we go for new programs. And we just have to make sure we have enough money in the general fund to pay for the obligations that we've already created.
I'll call on myself. I wasn't here in 2010. Yeah, okay. So, Brian, can you refresh my memory? What did we have an intention of getting back up to that 16,000 level mark at some point? I find it really interesting that we were kind of consistently wavering around 14 to 16, and now we're consistently not, of course. And was there a strategy or a reason we were up there before that we would want to talk about getting back to?
So the target, there's a minimum which is lower, and then the target is 12%. The difference really, and the only reason this goes up, is that we have accounted for many different things in the general fund reserve. So the biggest one has been we prepaid jail costs. Right. So prepaid jail cost was basically we had a credit of $200,000 to $400,000 per year. So every year that has actually been going down. Mm-hmm. Offsetting that, we actually have donations for fire and police departments in here, which has been going up. Another one is the turf that we just replaced. So we were saving money to replace the turf, and that was causing the reserve to go up here slightly for a certain period of time. I am trying to get all of those things that create noise out of this so that we don't have that, because it's misleading. Mm-hmm. A lot of this is also restricted council policy when we received an insurance policy. About $1.3 million of this is for an insurance policy settlement for the remediation down on the waterfront. That council's policy has been to hold it for future attorney's costs or legal fees associated with any other work down there. So, and then the last big one was we had a lawsuit that we had $1 million in here that was part of another settlement that the state auditors required us to not count it as revenue, even though it had been paid for us. We could not recognize it as revenue until the lawsuit had been settled. And so this number has been up and down for those type purposes. This number is getting much more where we're down to just what is left now. A lot of those things, jail, this is the last year we have a prepaid jail credit. So there's a lot of other things that have been accounted for in here just historically that have been legacy type decisions that have been carried forward for a number of years. Now, that being said, the attorney legal fee, that is a council policy that if you guys changed your mind and we came back and said, you know, this money is now needed for something else, I think that you could make that decision. We would need to talk to our legal department and Amy Cram and work out where they are in future remediations. But that could be one of the decisions that needs to be made. I mean, we've been making a number of those with Mayor Kelly's decisions in the past that have come to council as far as how things are paid for. The other thing I'd just add is that the general fund was, the good news is that we had a big general fund reserve when the recession hit because it has allowed us to continue with the level of service and staff. We've done only our staff reductions through very small number of layoffs and then through attrition. But we just need to keep it in mind is that has a limited lifespan or that it can't go on forever. And so this number really is being impacted now by the deficit that we've had for 6 years now, and that you can't, you know, this has to change. Something has to change out here in our decision making because it can't keep going down. It might not be this year or next year, but it can't keep going down on this trend.
The council has made purposeful decisions about different policies that are very helpful for somebody who's writing the first budget. I think because those above 12% targeted reserves are continuing to go down, as Brian said, and there is a gap between the 12% and the 6%, so we've got a little leeway there. It might be a good thing in the course of the next year or two to talk about the policy if we get to that position, because one of the things that I think is very appropriate is using it for one-time costs. So you're not necessarily hiring staff with it, but you're investing in something that we all believe is a priority, but it doesn't go on and on and on every year. So you're not going to affect more to that 12% line. But I think it'd be good to have that policy discussion before we get there rather than when we get there, because when we get there, there's going to be a lot of pressure on financially, where do we put our money and that kind of thing. It'd be nice to have the discussion when we can look at all the facts and try to make some policy decisions that both keep the city progressive and moving forward and protect the fiscal stability of city government. So I guess that's something we have to do right now because we're not at that point. But I think within the next year or two we do.
Yeah. Michael?
If you chopped off the graph from 2015 forward and just looked at that graph, what you see up here is actually a relatively healthy picture of a city well above their $5 million minimum, also well above the 12% target. The problem is going from 2015 forward, and to me that's a consequence. The real focus in my mind is on what Brian pointed to earlier, the increasing cost, the increasing percentage of our general fund costs that goes to personnel, and the fact that that's being driven so much by healthcare costs. We've had presentations here 3 or 4 times. I mean, healthcare costs are the biggest problem for this organization. It's a structural problem for any business. We are not unique in any way. We have generous healthcare plans, but even if we didn't have generous healthcare plans, we'd still be facing the same upward trend. So it's really that driver, I think, that we need to focus on, and I don't have any good solutions to that one. It's a national problem.
Well, I like how you said, Brian, getting the noise out in a sense, because it does make me understand more exactly what we're looking at. Yeah, going forward, I'd be really interested in having a conversation about what our goals are for the general fund. And I'm sure all of council feels that way. I feel, really grateful being on council now that we did have the buffer we had, of course, and I know we were somewhat anticipating the recession, but it's not something you really anticipate that far out, enough to prepare for it. So, in 2017, if this continued the way it appears to be going without any changes, we wouldn't be in a very good position to deal with something like that, and that doesn't make me feel good, because other councils prepared us to be in a position to weather that storm better than I would have then done. So that is something we need to talk about. Anything else for Brian or the mayor? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, lastly, this afternoon before executive session, we have an ordinance amending Bellingham Municipal Code, Section 2.56.020, to correct a Scrivener's error. Is that right? Is it Scrivener? I feel like Scrooge McDuck for some reason when I say that. Ordinance 2000-05-023 created the Office of the Hearing Examiner. This ordinance, codified as Bellingham Municipal Code 2.56, provided a mechanism for appointment of pro tem hearing examiners as needed through mayoral appointment without council confirmation. Bellingham Municipal Code 2.56 was subsequently amended by Ordinance 2002-07-050 to change the reappointment term of the hearing examiner from 4 to 2 years. The amendment and its legislative record did not address textually or substantively any change in the manner of appointed pro tem hearing examiners. However, when the amendment was codified, the sentence regarding pro tem appointments was inadvertently omitted from the code. The purpose of the proposed ordinance is simply to confirm the language and intent of Bellingham Municipal Code 2.56.020, which provides for the mayor to appoint hearing examiners pro tem in the case of a conflict or absence of the hearing examiner. And it looks like Peter Raffato is here to present this for us today.
Yes, Peter Raffato, Legal Department. I'd first like to say that that particular Scrivener is no longer in the Legal Department.
Oh, the Scrooge Scrivener?
But this was discovered when Don Sturwold retired, and in fact, there are pro tem appointments from time to time, even when we have a permanent hearing examiner. It's a real practical thing that comes up due to absences and whatnot. And the practice has always been that the mayor makes those appointments. Sometimes it's for a very short duration, sometimes it's on short notice. And it was discovered, actually, Don Sturwold was really involved in drafting the code language, and when we talked about how that sentence didn't seem to be in there, she pointed it out. I went back and looked at the legislative history, and the ordinance that changed, it actually changed the length of term for a permanent, and it was in strike-through format. That line just was not there. It wasn't stricken. It just wasn't in there. And so based on that, that legislative research, I felt that it was, and in fact, I actually had correspondence with Code Publishing to reinsert that. And there's a note in the code right now, but I thought it was appropriate to have an ordinance confirming that by the council.
That's great. Thanks, Peter. Any questions or comments?
Move approval of the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Michael?
Yeah, this is for a temporary fill-in position, but there's no language in here which requires that to be the case. I would move that we amend the language to insert a duration. So one or more hearing examiners pro tem may be appointed by the mayor for such terms as may be specified time of appointment, not to exceed 6 months, would be my amendment, to serve in the case of conflict or absence of the hearing examiner.
Harry?
I don't think it's needed. I mean, we've had other places across the street, everything else has that ability to appoint a pro tem as needed for duration. If you have an injury, if you have an illness, they can do that. The nature of the pro tem is that temporary basis. We don't have to amend the language to do that. This covers it, so I'm not going to support it because it's not needed.
Anyone else? Okay, Michael?
And Peter, can I ask you a question? It just seems like there's a door here that we could just have kind of permanent pro tem, a permanent pro tem. I don't see how that's limited. And I guess the reason why I'm interested in the hearing examiner is because the hearing examiner makes and handles matters that were formerly handled by the city council. These are, general public policy kind of concern issues that are dealt with by the hearings examiner, which is why the council has, some authority over the permanent positions. It seems to me we should have some say over at least limiting so we don't get a permanent temporary appointment. Is that a concern? Seems to me it is.
Well, my perspective is, it's never been a problem historically. It's always a matter of pro tem has a certain implicit limited duration in it, and whenever there's a pro tem filling in, it's always with the view for it being just that pro tem. So the language itself suggests that it's never really been a problem that I'm aware of. So that's my perspective. And there's some practicalities in not knowing what the circumstances are that lead to whatever absence exists. And so those are my perspectives.
Okay. Michael,
Can I just say,
yes, Mayor
if there's
Kelly.
any concern, and it hasn't been a problem in the past, it's not going to be a problem with me. If there are concerns about future mayors, problems with future mayors, if there's any mayor that's abusing an authority, then there's legal ways to take care of that. And I'm not assuming that would be the case with this. Flexibility is important just so you can deal with the situation quickly. So I guess I'd say it's a temporary basis. I didn't request this. If anybody is wondering if I read something and found this out, I did not. It was brought to us by legal, and like Peter said, Don Sturwald was the one that actually found it. So I would just assure the council that there's certainly no intent on this mayor's part to abuse that authority.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't think I recall you made an actual motion.
No, I did, but there's no second.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, motion dies apparently for lack of a second. So I'll entertain another motion.
We already have one.
That was a motion to amend. So.
Right.
I moved it, Terry seconded.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Boy. Okay. Any further discussion of this ordinance? Was that a hand, Michael? No, okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0 with Weiss absent, and we'll bring that forward this evening for a vote. Okay, any old or new business? Seeing none, we have one set of minutes to approve this afternoon for August 4th, just
approval.
a week ago.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Michael?
I'd like to suggest one change on page 1 of the, I think this is Committee of the Whole, Council Planning Committee's planning. It was a planning committee. It shows, so comments are written by Councilmember Murphy, but the way the minutes reflect, it's like they're being stated as truths about the rental safety program, as opposed to things that she personally would like to see. Her own personal opinions of what would make a good program. So maybe if it read something like Councilmember Murphy stated 3 things she'd like to see in a rental safety program, :
Roxanne?
I'd prefer it say that stated 3 things that she'd like administration and staff to explore. Would that be amenable?
That'd be very accurate, yes.
So changing the minutes to say Roxanne Murphy stated 3 things she'd like the administration to explore about the rental safety registration program. Okay. Okay. Everybody okay with that change? Heads nodding? Okay. All those in favor of passing these minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, minutes pass 6-0 with Weiss
That's the
absent.
correction.
And We will now adjourn to the executive session. Executive sessions are closed to the public. A report will be given at the regular meeting. The governing body may hold an executive session only for specified purposes, which are identified in RCW 42.30. We have two items this afternoon. The first is litigation, Newland versus Susi et al., and the second is bargaining authority and strategy. The length of today's session is approximately 25 minutes. So we will reconvene at 3:30, 3:40 probably. Okay, thank you.